NRL Fantasy Buy, Hold, Sell round 21. It's a big week. It's the week after everyone got 8 extra trades. And it's a week where many are looking at 4 trades in the bank. Biz, mate, I know you're one of those coaches. You burned 4 last week. Are you burning 4 again this week?
You've set me up to look bad here, but yes, I burned 4 the minute I got him last week, and I'm probably going to just burn my last 4 this week and just hope to the Lords that I get a good run. But it's been a long season. I'm ready for it to kind of wind down. My final team's looking pretty good. How about you, Long? Are you holding those trades or are you burning them?
Oh, mate, I'm flush. I'm flush. I'm not like you, an irresponsible coach. I only used 3 trades last week, so I have
Oh,
5 in the bank. Yeah, pretty
so
spoiled for choice
you're a
here.
miser, mate. You're a cheapo.
I mean, the problem for me is that my team's not as good as yours. So even though I'm ahead on the ranks, you'll probably catch up a bit. But I'm planning to hold a couple of trades in reserve. It's not usually my style, but this year is so brutal and the squads are quite shallow. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking I'll probably need some trades pretty soon. Now, let's get right into it for today's show. We've got a really good one. So we got buys, we got pods, we got the hold the sell options, we got the guys that we don't like. There's quite a few options that I'm getting sent through that I hate the look of right now. I want to talk you out of as well. Don't always listen, but every now and then you might want to. And the other thing for today, guess the score promo. Nathan Cleary again. So last week, Riley Evans, he scored the 76. Unfortunately, there was no prize last week. There is a prize this week, though. Championship ring for your fantasy league, or just for you if you want to keep it to yourself, up for grabs. Whoever guesses Nathan Cleary's score. Now, if there are 2 people who guess the same score, then whoever guessed first wins the ring. Biz, I'm going to throw it to you here. What is your guess for Cleary up against the Dragons this week?
Mate, honestly, like, Cleary just, I hate this guy because I rushed him in 10 weeks ago when he played, only to get like a low score and a hamstring. I didn't rush him in this week and he pops off. I reckon if I didn't jump on him this week, I'm saying 91. Because I'm trading him in this week, I reckon 58.
58. Okay, it's still solid. It's better than Fafita last week.
Uh,
I'm going to go a bit different and say a much higher score. I think he pops off, and I'm going to call it a 98. I think it'll be 100 plus pre-updates, and it'll bounce just down a little bit.
All right, looks like I have to get him in this week if you're right.
I'm often wrong. I said the same about Hines when we bought him a month ago, so it doesn't always work. But look, that feeds in. Nathan Cleary is that first buy. There isn't that much to say on this one. Nathan Cleary is the best player in fantasy. He's actually down to 840K as well. Really should have updated that. But for Nathan Cleary, you're getting a guy who realistically is worth close to $1 million, right? And 840K, 860K, all those sort of numbers, they are a discount for a guy like him. So for me, it's a must-have. I think you can break your team a bit to get Nathan Cleary. He's one of those guys that's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, my only counter argument to that, and like preface this, I am getting him in, but he did come out and say that they're going to manage his kicking game a bit more with Luai taking a lot more kick meters. Now, it didn't happen last week with Snyder, but with Luai, they might rely on his kicking a bit more. And the other thing is, he's pretty much most definitely going to be rested in the last week. So I would just make sure you have half cover at the back there, because I'd say there's less than 1% chance he plays the last round of the year. But otherwise, just as long as he said he's at a discount, he's right now going to be the best player in fantasy. Even if he loses kick meters, like even if he loses 200 meters to Luai, right? Like he's probably still going to average 70 plus, especially because the Panthers have one of the softest draws to end the year, and they look pretty good. Last week was a close win against the Dolphins, but they also were missing a lot of their origin stuff, actually all their origin stars. So Panthers look really good again this year, which hurts to say, but they're going to be a force in the back end of the year. So yeah, get on Cleary.
Yep, Cleary the juggernaut. Isaiah Yo, same spot here, 100K cheaper. One of the best players in fantasy. I don't think he scored below 55 points in that starting role, playing good minutes as well. So super reliable. Bit of a discount, must have.
Yeah, I think so. I think, look, you get to this point in the season, there's so many must-haves, but you got like 3 trades. So what are you really going to do? I would put Yo at the top. I'm lucky. Like I'm a Yo guy. Even when he was backing up from Origin, he was scoring like 65 and 60 minutes. So he's actually been a good player to have over that Origin period. He didn't back up last week, but he has been backing up otherwise. I think get him in. He should be safe for 65 plus most weeks. A captaincy option as well. The only thing is, again, if you're getting Cleary, Isaiah Yo is also going to get rested in the last week. So you have 2 of your key guns down.
Mm.
So I know I'm going to have at least 2 out that week. I also have Fanua Blake who's going to be out that week. So I already have 3 of my guns out that week. But I'm just going to assume that by round 27, I'm not going to care anymore. So get him.
Yeah, around 27, a lot of people are going to be stuffed that week, 100%. With Yo, though, I do think the fact that he got a rest last week is good news. So you get that out of the way. He's not going to have another rest anytime soon. He could potentially play round 27. There have been games where they've rested everyone else and they've played Yo. Yeah. So if there's someone in Penrith who's going to play that game, it's probably Isaiah Yo, but not for full minutes. Got some interesting ones here now. So Beau Fermor's next. Now, he gets center in the latest updates with dual position, which is pretty interesting and very timely with the fact that Ewan Aitken is now not available at center. I do want to really point out that Beau Fermor is not Ewan Aitken. So Ewan Aitken was pumping out 50 minimum scores. He had the attacking upside, but the base was rock solid. Beau Fermor's a bit of a different player. So he's a bit more attacking stat reliant as a back rower. And I wouldn't let the 2RF or, the edge forward sort of name there put you off the fact that Beau Fermor is very attacking stat reliant. So if you're going to get Beau Fermor, as much as I do like him, 49-point average is quite solid. You're relying on big attacking stats and tries. So in terms of previous seasons, his best ever year, he averaged about 51 points. He had 11 tries that season. So do you think he's going to get those tries every week? Can he individually create those tries, or are the Titans going to feed him enough ball that he scores those tries? And that's where I look at him at 662K, and I think I would prefer to spend the extra 100K, get Isaiah Yo, or get someone else who's an elite gun, as opposed to a Beau Fermor who very realistically could be a 45 average for the run home.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. The other thing is 49 average, if you plug him in at center most years, it's a godsend. You'd like 49 average at center is like hallelujah, right? But this year, there's actually a lot of centers who are averaging in the high 40s, like Garrick, Kiraz, all these guys are averaging close to 50 when they're playing 80 minutes, when they're not getting hurt. I think Garrick averages 51, 52 when he plays 80 minutes. He's just had a few concussions early in the game. So in a normal year, I would say, I'd love to have a guy like Fermor in my centers. But this year, I've got Wyden, Kiraz, and Garrick in my centers, and they're all kind of averaging 50 in the current positions they're playing. Like, for example, Wyden at 6. So I'm not going to burn one of my last trades on Fermor. But I think if you need a center, he is a great option, because I think unlike the others, he should be at least stable for 40 plus, with the bigger upside getting him to the 45 to 50 average. So no, I agree with your assessment.
Even a Kale Iro, for example, like I don't think it's worth the trade and 100K to go Iro to Fermor. Like, what are you getting? You get an extra 5 points a week potentially, but Iro has much less injury risk, much less positional movement risk. Like, I just reckon it's pretty sideways trade. So for me, Beau's not the guy. For you, Beau's not the guy, but a lot of people are going to like him. A lot of people are going to get excited about the fact that he's center available. Pretty more attractive in a draft league, but yeah, I'm skipping this one over. Payne Haas is one that I definitely don't recommend skipping over. So Payne Haas, when he's playing big minutes in that front row for the Broncos, he is unstoppable. And last week, you see 53 points, you think, oh, that's pretty underwhelming. That's backing up from Origin in the same game where Paddy Carrigan scored, what was it, like 21, 18 points in 50 minutes?
And it was like a brutal Origin game to back up from too. Like, he would have been sore. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, mate.
I think it has to Yo.
And they blew it out too.
Yeah.
But the Broncos won by a bunch.
Yeah. And like the Payne Haas, like Broncos are desperate. So they need Haas out there for big minutes. And at 800K, he's also like a close to 100K discount from the start of the year. And we saw, other than his injury at the start of the year, he's been a really good scorer. So, yeah, I'd get him in too. Like I got him in last week because his break even was 56, even though he's backing up. I was like, even if he plays 45 minutes, he can probably hit 55. So, yeah, I think get him in. He's in the same category as Cleary and Yo, a guy you definitely want in your team for the run home, because he can pop out 65, 70, 75 pretty easily without really getting too much attacking stats.
Yeah, I got him last week too. Other thing is he's got the Dogs this week, so potential for attacking stats. They got no Max King. They're looking a bit small in the middle. Payne Haas is the kind of guy who could pop off a few tackle busts, a few offloads, all that sort of thing. So could be a big score from him. Could be a captain option too, if you don't like the risk of Cleary. I've had a few people asking about that, and Payne Haas is definitely a worthy guy. Jamal Fogarty up next, 729K. And I had to throw him in, right? Because he's coming in and the stats on Jamal Fogarty this year is absolutely crazy. Like he is producing monstrous points. He is doing 100% of the kicking in Canberra, and he has the attacking upside and work rate with the ball in hand as well to go with that. So I'm looking at him and thinking, look, 729K. If I just looked at the numbers, he's equal to Cleary. Obviously, based on previous pedigree, that's not the case. But do you think he's good enough to be a keeper for the run home? And would you choose him over someone like Jerome Hughes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have him over Hughes. Actually, the reason I waited a week on Cleary is also if Cleary had lost the goal kicking to manage his hamstring and also lost half the kick meters, I actually think I would have gone Fogg over Cleary because Fogg has shown he's like a 60 guy this year and he's priced much lower than that. So before his injury, you got to remember, like, people were jumping on Fogg because he was, other than that one game where he was like 40 points, he was constantly popping out high 50s, low 60s. And anyone who averages 60 in my mind becomes like close to a must-have keeper for the run home because there's a lot of 50 average guys. There's very few 60 average guys. So the 60 guys are really the tier one elites. So I like Fogg. I just think that if you've got Galvin, you're probably holding him. Like Galvin's scoring really well.
Yeah.
You want Cleary. Fogg is probably the next guy, or there's one more player in our pods list, which we'll go through shortly, that you probably want. But I would definitely be taking Fogg or mystery man, Mr. X, over Hughes for the run home, that's for sure.
Mystery man. Do we want to shout out any other buy options here as well? So there's a few guys we could talk about. Like I'll throw one in, Gus Crichton. They've got a buy in round 23. So he plays 2 games, has a buy, then plays a few more games. Chooks are in a pretty good spot. You might get a rest by round of the year. I was shocked he didn't get a rest last week. They were so comprehensively beaten. And he was backing up from a brutal Origin game, but he played the full game in that one. So he's an option you can look at. So
yeah. I'm surprised they backed him up, as you said, especially because he copped that crusher-looking neck at the start.
The neck would have been sore, right? And that butcher's there. That butcher's great. Like, just plug him in.
Yeah, that's strange. Other buys, I think, some obvious ones. Colomatungi, he's absolutely killing it. Barnett, he's absolutely killing it. Both got dual position, middle and edge. If you can afford them, go for them. They look like safe 60-plus for the run home. With Barnett, he's got the buy in the last week as well. So watch out if you've got Cleary.
Barnett is in the don't buy section.
Yeah, well, see, I know. I actually, I didn't buy him for a reason. So, I would love to hear the argument for not getting him. But, he's scoring pretty well. He's in good form at the moment. Who else? I know I don't even want to spoil who's in your don't buy section, but I think there's a couple of guys here at hooker, especially like Connor Watson, Damien Cook even, who are in hot form right now. Watson comes off a down week, but he's now got the dual position. Cook's got the goal kicking. So I know he played at centre for most of last week, but he could be an interesting pod. I think at this time of year, anyone who's you think can average 55, 60 plus, look at them. They're all options. So, I think there's some good buys this week.
Cook is terrifying, right? Harry Grant, you got to mention as well, because I looked at the numbers previous seasons. He just pumps everyone at hooker. 2022, 2023. Could go back to that, but there was an interview he did over the weekend where he was talking about the fact that the halves and the back line are pumping it. So he's just got a defensive mindset, which his tackle count isn't enough to sort of support fantasy scoring in that mindset. So he's a shout. Yeah. Other ones we could talk about as well. We'll talk about them actually as we go through. Let's keep rolling through and we can hit some of these guys. So Skip up next. Players who, not to skipper, but players to skip on the list of buy options. Ones that I don't like that much. Biz, you might disagree and I'm happy to hear it. But Tommy Turbo is the first one. I look at him and I wasn't that interested last week at 600K. I'm certainly not interested this week at 650K. He's got a tough game against the Roosters this week. He has a bye next week, and then you have a run home that is pretty favorable. And, there is that potential. He goes supernova like he has in previous seasons. But there also is that potential that he gets hurt or that he has good games and scores 40 points or, whatever it is, right? Because Tommy Turbo, he's not an elite fantasy scorer. So he's an elite footballer, but he has to play so well, so transcendently well. Like that 90 points, for example. He had 2 tries and 3 try assists. Cleary scored 76 with, 1 try assist and a field goal? they're in completely different leagues in terms of fantasy production. So I look at him. I mean, I look at Ponga, for example, who put up 50 points in a big loss where he had no attacking stats. I like that a lot more than Tom Trbojevic. So I would rather wait a week and go for Ponga instead of, taking a guy like Turbo.
Yeah, I think that people get skewed on Turbo because given how good he looks on the pitch and also that one season where he averaged quite like 100. But you take that out. You take that stretch of that was like the unrealist form I've ever seen. That was like Jared Hayne 09 kind of vibes, right? But outside of that small sample size, Turbo's been like a high 40s, low 50s scorer. Whereas, like you said, Ponga, etc., like mid 50s, late 50s scorers. Even Reece Walsh, etc., I like them more this year. I like Latrell more, I like Dylan Edwards more. They're obviously injured. You can't do much. Like Teddy's always been a better scorer. So, yeah, Turbo hammered the Titans, but I agree with you. He could still be, like we saw this at the start of the year. He'd have a couple of good games and a couple of 30, 40s. There's a lot of games where he just doesn't do that much and he only scores 30 points. It kind of wrecks. I know most fullbacks do that, but Turbo especially. And I do think you're 100% right that his high scoring games have a lot of attacking stats. Like he could have a double and only score 50. And we've seen that this year. So, also with injury risk, if I'm using one of my last trades on a guy like Turbo, I'm not going to sleep well. So, yeah, it's a skip from me.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to hurt you 100%. Mitchy Barnett up next, so 860K. Look, my view on this is really simple. It's three things. First one is that the price is insane. He's the most expensive player in fantasy, and he's not in my top 10 fantasy players for this year. Second point, he started the year with good minutes and a good role and was scoring sort of 35s. He's had a great run recently, but 66 last week included a try with a line break. So really it was a high 40s score that he was putting up in 66 minutes. And the third thing is I look at that team and I think the minutes have been inflated due to mid-game injuries a lot. So they lost Tuapiki very early in that game. They lost Pompey. They've had a lot of guys that would have been spelling Barnett at prop, for example, Halasima, moving out to the centers, moving out to wing, all that sort of thing. So I just sort of look at Mitch Barnett and I think he's had a pretty big period where he's played a lot of minutes. He played big minutes in Origin. He backed up. I think at some point that will start to sort of wind back at times. And you get this sort of plodding mid-ranger who, might get outscored by Ryan Madison any given week, right? And the other thing is you've got that round 27 buy. So you're paying big dollars for a guy who's unproven and his ceiling is lower than what you're going to see from Haas and these other guys anyway. So I just think this is such a no-brainer to avoid. He's not even in consideration for me.
I'm going to go the other way, and I think Barnett could be a great buy for the run home. So it's good. I'll give you the other perspective. I think, yes, I agree that Barnett's pedigree isn't the best. So he's never been that top-tier scorer. I think he has had seasons where when he's playing 80 minutes in the second row, he's averaged, in the mid-50s. So he can score, but I agree with you. When I look at his stats raw, at the start of the year, he was getting big minutes and pumping out like a 40 average. I agree with that. But I also think he's in one of those form periods where he's the best player on that Warriors team, at least in the forward pack. So his stats are up. He's combining now a decent defensive work rate with attacking stats. He's getting big minutes. I know you said there's been injuries that have inflated his minutes, but I look at his minutes last week, and he did still play more minutes than Fanua Blake. So they want him on the field longer. They want Fanua Blake, who is a big minute prop and scores well. I would say Barnett has at least as good a scoring pedigree as Barnett as Fanua Blake in terms of base stats. Attacking stats, he's not going to score as many tries, but he does offload more. He does break quite a few tackles. Dual position means that, when you're running out of trades, that's one of the most valuable things you can get in a player. So the two downsides I have on him is, yes, round 27 buy. If you're getting a lot of Panthers players and other players from top teams, you're going to miss half your team that week. Counter-attack to that is that most players will be in the same boat. And yes, he's the most expensive player in fantasy. But I've learned this year that you kind of just follow the hot form. And I don't have Barnett, and he's not going to end up in my team. I just don't have the trades to make the cash for him. But if you're sitting flush with cash and you can afford to bring him in, then I think Barnett could be a guy. Yes, he'll have some 45, 50 games, but he's going to balance them out playing 70 minutes at prop with like 65, 70 scores, and he's going to be in that top tier. So that's my counter argument on Barnett.
All super valid. All super valid. All right. Like what you're saying is absolutely correct. I'm going to throw something at you though. So I'm going to list off a bunch of players who are 100K cheaper than Barnett.
Yeah.
And you can tell me who you'd prefer, Barnett or these players.
Yeah.
Angus Crichton.
Barnett.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Dual position solid.
Right.
Yeah.
Isaiah Yeo.
Yeah.
Connor Watson.
With DPP now, Watson.
Jamal Fogarty.
Barnett.
Cleary.
Come on, man. Still 100K cheaper. They're like the same price.
All right. Casey McLean.
Oh, how about I raise you one with a Jake Tunga?
Yeah. No, look, fair enough. You've gone Barnett over Crichton, so I think we have him in different positions as well on our ranking board. So I think Crichton outscores Barnett on the run home. And I look at my team. I'm very heavy in middle as well, so I actually don't need the mid cover too much. But I like your case. I like us disagreeing. Let's see how he goes next week, and let's bring it up.
Like I said, I don't have him because I'm also mid and edge stacked. But if I just love that dual position, and I love Colin Matangi for the same reason. I got Colin Matangi last week because he was cheaper. But no, I agree with what you're saying too. I think there's definitely one where you can pick a side.
Hey, buy the hot form though, right? Like you and I both fall into the trap. We buy pedigree. That's
it hasn't worked for me this year. You've been better this year. It hasn't worked for me this year.
It could be better. Jerome Hughes is up next here. So Hughes, really straightforward. 60 average when he plays without Munster. 52-ish average when he plays with Munster. Munster is on the extended bench this week. Probably going to be back this week. If not, then next week. Don't buy Jerome Hughes. People are talking about Jerome Hughes. I've seen a few other spots sort of talking about Jerome Hughes as a top 2 half for the run home, all that sort of thing. He's not in that category. He's not even close to a few of these guys we're going to talk about. I'm not selling him because I think he's a reliable green dot and they have good fixtures and he could score 12 tries against Parramatta this week. But at the same time, we could say that about Parramatta. But at the same time, look, I'm not selling him. I wouldn't be buying him. If I had 20 trades, I'd probably sell him. So he's an easy one to leave out. Jack White and Ryan Madison, I'll throw it to you here.
Yeah.
Are either of these guys ones that you think shouldn't be in this column, or do you think they're both ones that we should avoid buying?
I got them both, but I wouldn't buy them. Honestly, Wyden I could buy. I think Wyden's averaging 50
567. Okay.
Yeah, but he is averaging 50 plus now, like when he's playing 80 minutes at 5'8" this year. And the Bunnies look a lot better than they did to start the season with him at 6. I think he's a cut price keeper. So initially in my trade plans, I was trading Wyden out. And then I realized that, well, he's averaging 50 at center. Why would I trade him out? I'll just make him my starting center. So I traded out Euro last week instead because I don't need that many centers because I got like I said earlier, like Garrett, Kiraz, etc. So Wyden, I would consider buying. I think, like I said, he's scoring well. He's in a position he's scoring well. He's doing the bulk of the kicking. The Rabbits look good. They should only look even better when Latrell comes back, hopefully in a couple of weeks. Ryan Madison, I got him in like 2 weeks ago, but I don't love it. Like I kind of actually wish I had that one back. He's just not the same. Like you're buying it on name. He's not the same Ryan Madison he was 2 years ago. He isn't really getting those attacking stats. He's not really in the defensive work rate. And he's missing a lot of tackles. He just doesn't. He's not like most of the Para team. He's just off this year. Yeah. At 550K dual position, yes. I liked him more on the edge, knowing that he would play 70, 80 minutes. Like now at lock, as an owner, it's kind of positive. But like the Eels always have offer start at lock or prop. So it's either Greg that's going to the bench or Matto that's going to the bench. So I don't think Matto's playing huge minutes. I think, again, 55, 60 minutes max. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but that's just how it's gone. He's too much of a mid. Like even if he plays big minutes, I feel like he's a high 40s, low 50s guy. Whereas I'd rather get trades on guys who are 55, 60 plus. So I'm skipping both for sure.
I think he's spot on too, because Matto is a 55 average historically, playing big minutes on the edge. Like you're saying, he's not competing for kicks in the air. He's not sort of crafting those offloads and that sort of thing like he was previously. So his attacking stats aren't quite there. Jackie White, and I just want to shout out here, 567K, right? So we were really high on him when he was 400 to 450. I think I got him for about 430. I think you did the same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, look, great then, right? Because we were looking at the 43 historical average at 5/8, which is solid. He's been pumping it with 50 plus. I think it's about a 52 average since he's gone to 5/8 at the Bunnies. But does he maintain that number? If Latrell comes back, he fades because the Latrell eats a lot of the kick meters up. So that knocks about 5 points off him.
Yeah.
Some of the playmaking knocks off as well. So I don't know. I just don't think he's quite at that keeper level. And even for the rest of the year, I've got him forecast as a 43 guy. I think what we're seeing recently isn't like he's not going to be better than his Dally M year, for example, for the rest of the year, right? Like he's had a good run, but I'm kind of reining things in a bit. And I think at that price, you can go 300K cheaper and get, McLean from the Panthers, who is going to start at center for the rest of the year. And even if he is a 35 average, which is lower than what Taylor May was, and Taylor May was allegedly a big disappointment, right? Then that's only a loss of 10 points on Whiten, right? And you're saving all that money, and you can use that money to get a real gun. Otherwise, because you're looking at equations of like, you either get Jack Whiten and Ryan Madison, or you get McLean and Cleary. A lot of coaches are looking at that kind of thing. I'd rather prioritize the big buy and then just make someone work with the cheap money rather than prioritizing a guy like Jack Whiten. The other thing I'm going to point out here is with Maddo, and you talked about it a bit already, but he's not a big part of the club's future plans. So, there's talk that they might be letting him out of his contract, all these other things, if he can go somewhere else. If the future coach doesn't love him and Riles is coming to Parramatta early, I don't think Para have any other options really, but that role could change. That role could get worse. We could see Moretti get 60 minutes. He plays big minutes in reserve grade. Like we could see anything happening here. So
on the flip side, though, let me raise you one, Longy, on that.
Yep.
If he's fighting for his position,
okay,
and a new coach is coming, and he knows that there's no contract on the table for him if he doesn't get it up, does he become one of those guys, those contract year guys who just go crazy? Maybe.
Yeah, and parasite him on a 1-year deal over and over again. Look, I'm a Madison owner like you. I like him enough to keep him over Samuel Afainu, and I've got him around even with Scott Sorensen in my team.
Yeah.
So, he's sort of in that level where he could bounce up, and there is risk to his role. Same with Sorensen; he gets hurt quite a bit. So, I don't know. All of the things you're saying are really exciting upside plays for me holding him, but they're not enough to buy a player like this. So.
Absolutely, I'm totally in your camp. Like, I am not excited about owning Madison. He's the 17th guy in my team. But like I said, I kind of wish I didn't get it. I would have used that trade and money better if I had that back.
Man, how nice to have trades right now, eh? Speaking of trades, you don't need trades to play this game. Guess the score. Drop your comment below. What score is Cleary going to get this week? Have a scroll through and see if the number's been taken. I'm going to guess that 89 hasn't been taken. Normally that one is free. I've seen a few people get that score and no one win. So you can win yourself a fantasy championship ring for your league or for yourself. Check that score. Riley Evans, again, shout out to you, mate. 76 last week. All right, pods up next. And these pods are extra spicy, right? So everyone knows about the normal buys. We've talked about the normal buys. We all know who the real guns are to get. If you are either someone who has no money in the bank at all and you want affordable guns, or someone who just doesn't like the popular players and wants to do something insane, this list is for you. Otherwise, keep scrolling, move to the next section. So pods. Brian Toa is the first one here, and he's probably, I know, some of these are pretty outrageous. Some of these aren't too outrageous, but Brian Toa is not as outrageous as it sounds. I did a bit of an analysis on the numbers, and Brian Toa comes out as a top 3 wing fullback for the run home. I think Penrith have really good fixtures. I've liked his form recently. I like the fact that Cleary is back as well. And I think all things are aiming in the right direction for Toa to have some really big scores and a big average on the run home.
Yeah, I think he's one of the better wing fullback pods. Excellent run home. Again, though, if you've got Yeo, if you've got Fanua Blake, Barnett, Cleary, could get a rest last week, but like I said, who cares about last week? Everyone's going to stop caring about it anyway. So I think it's a great play. He's a bit expensive, but he's shown that he can get hot, and I think he'll score a lot of tries, a lot of tackle busts. And his personal form, like you said, is really good as well. So, yeah, I'm hotter on Toa than I am on Hosking, who's your next guy.
Toa, pick on Toa versus Jaden Campbell. About the same price. Who would you buy this week if you were having to buy one?
I'd go for Brian. I don't like Jaden's comments about being held up by pins and screws or whatever he said. Like, again, like I don't want to use my trade on a guy who's going to cop a bad knock and then get injured for the rest of the year. They'll shut him down. Like, they're not going to make the 8. So I'll go Brian Dorger.
Yeah, they got Brimson and Keeney as well. It's a tough spot. All right, Hosking, you wanted to talk about him?
Yeah, I mean, I love the pedigree, but like, or the fantasy potential, but coming off the bench, like 60-minute guy, you really want to use one of your last trades on that? We already got Madison stinking it up for us doing the same. So tell me why you would buy him.
I mean, 49 points, 51 minutes, first game back.
Yeah.
He looked good. Look, I'm not doing this, but I more am including him on this list just as a guy that I want to keep an eye on. Yeah. And if he ever sneaks into the starting side, you'll get down to about 600K. He has the pedigree to be one of the best back rowers in fantasy. So upside potential is there. When I ran the numbers, it was him, Dave Fafita, and Gus Crichton who sat in the top section by themselves. And his sample size was very limited, right? But it relies on him being a starter, but he has that pedigree to be a top back rower in fantasy. So more just an eyes up option. Keep an eye on him. If Elliot Whitehead disappears for some reason, or if Hudson Young, I don't know, moves to the centers, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, probably not going to happen, but worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah. No. Oh, I agree with you. If he got the second row spot, I think absolutely I'd love him. But Whitehead's kind of in his way, at least for next year he'll be great, right? So,
we're getting him in. Dillbags now.
I love this one. Yeah. I look, if I want to use my third trade this week, I think I'm getting Dillbags. And I think the reason that it's 610K, he's shown without Moses, he's like a 60 average player. So same as Fogarty, but 100K cheaper. I think he'll outscore Jerome Hughes to end the year. And like you were saying before the podcast, Longy, one of your points I'll steal while I'm on it, is that doesn't get injured too often, touch wood. Now that I said that, I know what's going to happen. But I think he's definitely a good buy for the run home. With Riles coming, he's a guy that's going to have to step up. He hasn't had the best year. So, I think he's going to need to do more. And I don't think Dejan Arce does take kick meters off him, but I don't think Arce is a long-term plan. So I think they're really focused on Dylan's development. I wouldn't be surprised if Riles, who's kind of involved, will be like, let Dylan take the reins here and see what he can do. But at 610K with a guy who can average 60 without Moses, I think he's definitely the second best half to own after Cleary for the run home, given the price he's at.
Second best? Oh, price. Okay, yeah. I was going to say second best standalone comment would be a huge call. I'm with you there, though. Like he's super durable. Worst case scenario, you get a guy who is scoring relatively consistently and will be available up to round 27. Best case scenario, 60 average is pretty crazy. So, yeah, I'm with you there. I'm actually changing a lot of my plans to make space for Dylan Brown on the back of the Moses news. So it's a bit of a game changer. He's going to be a part of the halves ranking I do as well. So we'll do that ranking based on him without Moses. Dylan Walker up next. And this is one that I was pretty dismissive of last week. So 500K, it was his price last week. He's up to 532. He scored 62 points in 80 minutes last week. They had a lot of injuries. And they had, Lussick and Egan were playing on at the same time, for example, right? So they were doing everything basically to get a full side out there. But for Dylan Walker, 532K, I keep getting this question. Should I get Dylan Walker? Why not? 80-minute lock, 80-minute lock. It's like a parrot. And I can't really answer it other than saying that he's been a 38 average, playing lock in the past with good minutes. I just don't believe that Dylan Walker will be a durable 80-minute lock for the remaining 2 months of the season. And I am certain, I love Dylan Walker as a player. I actually really have liked him ever since he was at Souths. But I'm certain that if you buy him, you will be trading him out with one of your last trades, or you'll be writing a red dot there with some sort of injury or something like that, because he's not made to play 80 minutes at lock.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one. Again, but I think the upside is good. Like he played 80 minutes last week and 89 minutes in the long game in round 18 with also a 62. But I think a lot of things have to go right for him to end the year on like a 50-plus average. And yes, he's at a discount, but at this time of year, you're not really looking for value buys unless they're, like I said, Dylan Brown, who could average 60. And I think even if Dylan Walker's playing 80 minutes a lot, the rest of the year, buy in the last round. Like you said, his body's probably not used to that level of bashing in the middle And I think realistically, it's probably more at best low 50s average, which is not enough for me to get him in. He'll kind of end up like Madison, who we said don't buy. So skip Dylan Walker.
Okay, so Trindle then, he's a 50 average without Hines. A bit more reliable in the fact that he's usually not super injury prone or anything like that. It's a role that he's pretty comfortable in. Is this different for you?
Yeah, no, I think it's the same thing. Like he's not the top tier, even when he's like 50 is okay, but it's not enough for me to justify buying him. Like I know he's come off a 73 where he scored a try, but he also 73 with a try and 9 goals is quite ridiculous. And also
it's
on
Tigers.
that, like, he didn't actually dominate the kick meters. Like I think he got 300 and Atkinson also got 200. So it wasn't like a Fogarty situation where it's all or nothing. I don't love it. I think, like I'd rather get 100K more and get Dylan Brown. So I think when he was 400K Trindle a couple of weeks ago, before that 73, like yes, but now like the Wyden scenario, I'm not loving it.
Yeah, a bit pricey. Atkinson's another one that I was kind of eyeing off there. So 449K. He has the wing fullback eligibility, which is what I was looking at and thinking, my wing fullback position sucks, and he would probably be a starter over one of KO Weeks or Dry Gray, which is a disaster for me. I don't want to spend money on it either. So I'm kind of half considering that as a keeper wing fullback. So 40-ish average, 449K. I don't know. It's probably not good enough to really justify that move, but it's something that I'm half considering.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think that I don't love that, but it's better.
Good run of fixtures though for the Sharks.
Yeah, exactly. Atkinson's not bad. Like, he runs the ball a lot. Yeah, exactly. And Sharks look pretty good.
I don't know. I'm considering it. Anyway, no guarantees. No guarantees. I might just run Jake Tungo as a
starter.
I
was like, don't you know Jake Tungo's running the hot.
I've already got him in my team.
Yeah, same, bro. Don't worry. I feel like
cash out 230K.
Yeah, exactly. I don't regret. That's one Eels player I don't regret buying. I've regretted many over the years. Like I've regretted Joey Lussick, regret Ryan Madison. Dylan Brown was like, he was actually pretty good at the start of the year. So yeah.
You want to know something fun? I don't think I've owned an Eels hooker this year.
Well, thank God. Well, you don't have hands?
I don't have hands now.
You never owned hands this year? That's pretty impressive.
I don't think I even started with one because they had the bench situation.
Yeah. I got hands as a cash out, but I got Lussick in when he played that 180-minute game. He was terrible. I can't believe he's back on the bench this week. Anyway.
Haven't touched him.
Yeah.
Haven't touched him.
Good on you.
All right, so Cheapies. A lot of options here. We'll talk about a few of these guys. There's a few others we can talk about as well. Before we get into these group, though, let's talk about Latu Fainu first. So obviously he's got a couple of weeks as a starting half. Couple of things to be concerned about here. So as much as the price is attractive, Caesar will be back pretty soon. Caesar is the guy they want to put next to Galvin. There is no way they want to run out two very young halves next to each other to get absolutely destroyed like the Tigers have been recently. It would demoralize them. They'll want at least one senior half in the team. So Caesar's going to come back into the team. There's basically no chance Latu Fainu holds that spot. Nothing against him. It's just the situation he's walking into. The other thing I'll point out here is that training has involved both him and Coruscant playing in the 7 jersey. So keep in mind that you've got De Silva on the bench. De Silva will get minutes at some point. Either Coruscant goes off for a rest or Latu Fainu goes off for a rest and Coruscant is in that 7 jersey. So both of those are options. Basically across the board, he's not a guy that I'd be comfortable playing in my 17. But if you do want to use him as a pure cash out, maybe he isn't the worst option.
Yeah. No, I don't have anything to add there. I agree. I don't think he's got long enough.
Yeah. Bang, bang, bang. All right. I'll let you pick one of this list. So who jumps out at you?
I'll start with Kaufusi. I mean, he's playing second row now that Ewan Aitken's gone. But my view is, even if he plays 80 minutes and he averages 40, what are you going to do with that? You're not playing at 40 at this time of year. And I'd rather just cash out down to like a 200K player. Not 200, but you know what I mean, 250K, than have Kaufusi who can be 30 to 40. A suspension risk any given week, and he's at the latter end of his career, right? So, there could be some niggly injuries where he gets rested, etc. So, if this was mid-season or early season, absolutely. Late season when there's like 6 weeks to go, I don't really know what utility he provides. He's never going to be like I got, it's rich because I got Isaac Tungo last week, was the same price, and you'd say the same thing. But at least Tungo has shown he can be a keeper center. So with Cleary back, he could get on a hot run like he did last year. So, yeah, I don't really see why you would get a Kaufusi. So,
I mean, Kaufusi's had seasons of mid-40s average.
Yeah,
I reckon there's two reasons why you'd buy Kaufusi. One, you really like his haircut. The little mullet thing that he's got going on, pretty clean. Two, you have no money and you've started halfway through the year and you're just in dire straits. He's a guy you could plug in. He will score you about 40 points a week. So that one's more for people who they want a reliable scorer and they just have no cash, right? Maybe it's your first year, whatever it is, right? Kaufusi could be a guy you plug in, but other than that, probably not one to target. I'm going to talk about. I'll jump to Casey McLean next. So with McLean, 281k is not as attractive as I thought it was going to be when I first saw the injury. If I'm being honest, so Alamotti, obviously broken arm, tough situation for him, but he'll be back bigger and better than ever. He's got a lot of muscle on that arm. I'm surprised he didn't just flex the bone back into place, but. Hey, that's for sure. We'll see. Casey McLean, I look at him. He's a solid scorer, so he runs the ball a bunch, busts tackles, hasn't had a bunch of attacking stats in his 2 games so far, but he's playing in Penrith, and the worst case scenario really for an outside back in Penrith is like a 35 average. You're getting that at 281k. You got a pretty decent job security for the run home as well. I don't mind this one at all.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because I'd love to get him in, and I think he gives you the center. Like I said, I've got Tungo, but having a 280k cash out who could be a pretty reliable scorer in a great team with great fixtures, will probably play around 27 as well. Unlike the other Panthers, I doubt he'll get a rest. I love it. I honestly love it. Do I have a trade to get him in? I don't know, because I was going to maybe get Starling this week and just punt. I know I'm like 100k late on him, but whatever. Might as well play games at the end of the year. But I do like McLean as well. So I think the third trade could be getting him in and run with one to end the year. So let's see. They do have some other options there too, though, because I feel like the Penrith just churns out these backs who gets in and just kill it. So
yeah.
But then on the flip side, everyone that comes in ends up as a fantasy beast as well. Except Taylor May when I got him.
He's in the Taylor May spot. That's the problem.
Watch him do what Taylor should have done. But I guess the difference is 290k and I bought Taylor at 600. So anyway.
It's a good price, man. It's a good price because then Xavier Savage is the other guy you can look at there. So if Casey McLean was wing fullback eligible, I would be super, super high on him. I'd bring him in. I'd probably use him as a starter. Like that is how little I want. I want to punt wing fullback. I don't care about it at all. Xavier Savage is available at wing fullback, but he isn't quite as reliable a base stat scorer as Casey McLean so far. The thing with him, though, is his average with Fogarty was fantastic, and his average without Fogarty was a total disaster. So with a genuine halfback in the team really steering things around, and with KO Weeks at fullback, who's more of a creative playmaking fullback than Jordan Rapana or Chevy Stewart or any of these guys, I think Xavier Savage is set to thrive. So I look at him at 292k, and I don't want to be starting him any given week. But if you've got him and you've got him in a loophole spot, he does have those big games in him, and they do have some pretty decent fixtures coming up. And at a pinch, you could use him as a backup wing fullback who probably averages about that 35 that we're talking about as well.
Yeah, I was like that, considering him last week as a cash out. I think he's definitely a great player to have in your last 4 players because the chance of him getting dropped to low is cheap enough that it's a cash out still and you can use the money elsewhere. But he can also score enough that if you had to put him in for a week or two, it's not like disastrous where he could be scoring. I mean, he could score 5 points, but he's more likely than not to get you at least 25 with the upside for 50 plus. So, I do like him as a cash out for sure.
And then Halasima, any interest there?
Nah, scoring pedigree doesn't look great. I don't really know if he keeps the spot the whole year. I don't know enough about the Warriors system. He got 47 minutes last week for a sub 20 score. I think I'd rather just try and figure out a way to get one of these. I'd definitely put him last on this list. I think, yeah, I'd rather go for Savage or McLean over him. But if you don't need the depth and you've got plenty of trades, and you just need a bargain cash out at 230, 240K, I think Harseem is a good pick if you don't have like a Jake Tungo or someone already. Although I wouldn't get Jake Tungo now because Russell's back and with Sevo coming back soon, that Tungo could lose the spot. So, yeah. Starling, what do you
I don't mind that Tungo red dot though. Like that's because I bought him sort of think he'd become a red dot.
Yeah.
Wing fullback and center loophole.
Yeah.
I've got the spare center. I've got a spare wing fullback. That's kind of my whole strategy for the run home, to have less than optimal guys in those spots, but use loopholes to try and supplement it.
On the good week, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then Tommy Starling, 438K. So I got on last week. Late adjustment from Tungo to Starling. I just sort of thought about it a bit more, and I just really like the upside of Starling. The other part of it was I was thinking that, there's some other options in the outside backs that I could target. So for Starling, the upside is that he's a 56 average when he plays big minutes historically. That's a great average. And that factors in years where hookers were scoring better than they are this year. But this year, that average is about 56. So it's looking pretty solid. I would factor him in as like a 50 average for the run home if I was buying him. But I would consider the fact that Ricky Stewart hasn't been super consistent with these selections previously, and you are very likely to have a problem on your hands very late in the season when you have no trades left. So the upside is massive. The upside is keeper for mid-ranger / cheapie price. The downside is you get totally screwed over, and you've paid 438K, which is no longer cash out price for a guy who doesn't do much for you.
Yeah, and the thing is, the upside is huge. The downside is just as bad because it's not like he becomes a 30, 35 scorer when he gets benched. He becomes like a 10-point scorer. So he's like completely useless. He's not a red dot for you. You can't loop and you can't play him. So, and, I think as long as Raiders keep winning, he keeps that spot. But one bad loss, and he did miss a pretty bad tackle on the weekend that kind of led to a try.
There were two.
There's a couple. So I want him in, but I just know it's going to go sour. For him to hold the spot for 6 more weeks, 7 more weeks, I don't really have that much faith. But I also feel like if I don't get him and a lot of other people get him, I'll get punished by not having a guy who's scoring 55 who's 438K. So, look, I'm thinking maybe I should just get McLean, cash out, and Cleary this week. But Starling is very tempting as well. Like, just to have another 50-point player, it's pretty handy. So, yeah, I think I'm going to have to think long and hard about this one over the next couple of days before lockout.
I guess if we're giving advice, then what I would say is look at the last guy on your bench and tell me what you think his score is going to be this week. And then look at Starling and factor in a 50. Does it improve your team significantly? So is the last guy on your bench like a 30-point guy? Or is the last guy on your bench, a 45-point guy? If you've got that 45-point guy, you don't need to reach for Starling as much. But if you have someone who's a bit crap on the edge of your bench, then grabbing Starling actually boosts your scores today and also boosts your scoring potential long term. So that's the last thing I'd say to have a look at there too. Shout out again. Guess the score. Guess that score. If you're watching right now and you are this far in and you haven't guessed a Cleary score, I am personally insulted.
Come on, guys. Put a score. It's 2 digits. Come on.
Guess the number.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if you get to this point, put a decimal after your score, like 89.1 or something.
Yeah.
Then we'll know who's hardcore.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. 50 minutes. Good stuff. Whoever's listening, we appreciate it.
The people who are putting in the work.
Yeah.
They're putting in the work.
Or have nothing better to do. Wow, we've got another section.
Or they're doing something else and they're watching this in the background.
Yeah, or they stopped paying attention like 30 minutes ago.
They're paying attention. This is important stuff. Wake up. All right, hold or sell. This is actually a really good section because there's a lot of guys to talk about here. I'm going to throw in some extra names as well.
Yeah.
But Paddy Carrigan's the first one, 711K. Look, on live earlier, I was getting a lot of questions about, I'm considering trading Paddy Carrigan to Payne Haas. I'm considering going Carrigan to Yo, all that sort of thing. I'm not desperate to sell Carrigan if I'm an owner of him, but if I had one trade left to use this week and I wanted to use it and I had 60K in the bank, and Pat Carrigan the Yo was staring me in the face. I don't think I'm strong enough to say no to that.
I am. I'm holding Carrigan for sure. Like he's even okay with Haas he loses some points, but he's still like a 50, 55 guy at the end of the year with no trades. Like it wouldn't even be a question for me. There's no chance I'm trading him.
Fair play. Fair play. I'm with you there. I just think
you couldn't.
If you're stuck on an island,
I've got plenty of these guys like Robson, like Tarpanay that are kind of the similar boat, like low 700s. Would love to upgrade them. I just can't. I know it's like a not useful use of my trade. So I'll hold Carrigan for sure from me.
Don't sell the pseudo guns. I guess it's the same as what we were talking about Jerome Hughes as well. I'm just someone I sold Carrigan about a month ago. Yeah. So I'm a bit more.
That's interesting because Carrigan's like averaging like 60 this year. I know Haas was missing for a lot of it, but they'll need him for the run home. So I'm surprised.
Yeah, I mean, since I sold him, he's at a rest. He scored like 20.
Yeah, no, when you sold him, it makes sense because of Origin and stuff. But now, if you have him, you have to keep him now.
I think he's a 52 average with Haas if you don't count last week, which is generous. Yeah. Whereas 60 plus without. But I'm with you there. 711K is also a pretty good price as well. So we stick with him. Lockie Galvin is one that I'm pretty firm on in the hold camp on. I do have slight worries on this one. So obviously he had that injury issue that was lingering for a while. He's in a Tigers team that's getting beat up right now. He's a young guy. If he cops any sort of injury that is painful or debilitating in any way, they'd be smart to give him a rest before the end of the year. So not wearing my fantasy hat here. If I was coaching in the Tigers, that's where my head would be. So I think there is a risk that Lockie Galvin doesn't make it to the end of the year. And I've got a few guys like this where I'm sort of thinking, all right, I need to have a spare half. I might need to have a couple of spare trades. Lockie Galvin's one of those guys. But at the same time, he's scoring really well right now, and he's playing great footy. So right until the wheels fall off is sort of my advice there.
Absolutely. Hold on until you have to trade him. But he's playing well enough. He's scoring well enough. And without Hines there, like there's no guaranteed Hines-Cleary combination. So I think the second, he's not that far off tier 2. Like, he's probably below Cherry Evans and those guys. But I wouldn't trade Galvin. He's doing well.
Yeah. Almost as a higher base than DCA. Lower upside, but
well, Galvin he scored like 70 points of like 90 kick meters last week. So he's a good player.
Hey, he could carry this week too, so it could be big. KO Weeks up next, so 582K. There's a lot of people looking at selling KO Weeks, and I've looked at a few teams, and they're selling KO Weeks, and they're leaving themselves with only 3 wing fullbacks. And a lot of them have Manly players who are on the bye next week, or Roosters players on the bye the week after. So they're setting themselves up for these situations where they're going to have 2 wing fullbacks and they're going to be like, oh, no, I have to use a trade on wing fullback. Oh, another wasted trade on wing fullback. We've had a billion injuries at wing fullback. I'm sick of wing fullback, all right? Minimize your trade usage on wing fullback is my advice. KO Weeks at 582K, I'm not high on him at all as a producer at that price. But don't force a trade of KO Weeks to Turbo and set yourself up with Turbo and Garrick out next week. With a terrible scenario where you then have to use your last 2 trades on wing fullback as well. And then all of them are hurt in 2 weeks' time anyway, right? I just reckon it's a bit of a waste for a lot of coaches, and I'm going to be holding KO Weeks because I just don't like a lot of the upgrades. I might look at selling him for Ponga next week because Ponga's the only real upgrade. I already own Tedesco. Ponga's the only upgrade that I really like the look of because they're going to be fighting for the finals all the way home. Bit injury prone, but his scoring is fantastic and he has massive upside.
Yeah, look, I'm on the other camp. I'm selling him, I think. And my situation is very different. I'm good at wing fullback. Like I've got Walsh, Teddy, and Garrick there, and then I also
drag it up. Also,
no. I'm explaining.
You got Tungo as well. Jake.
Yeah, that's right. I got Jake Tungo and Isaac Tungo, 2 duds to support. And I'm trading 2 fullbacks this week, most likely, Weeks and Marzu, because they're like neither here nor there. They're not the top tier gun, and they're not like 200, 300K. So I 100% agree with your assessment. Look, I'm not moving Weeks to someone for no reason because Weeks has shown he's a big play guy. Decent run home. He could still score pretty well. Dual position as well, covers half. And like you said, like 5 minutes ago, Galvin, Cleary, you're going to need some half cover for these guys who might not make it to the end of the year. So I'm on the camp that in your situation, I'm definitely holding Weeks. In my situation where I'd rather stack up in some other positions, but I need to trade someone to Cleary, and Weeks is probably my best target to trade to Cleary because he's kind of already 600k and he doesn't need that much more cash to get there. So, yeah, I think in that situation you sell Weeks, but I can see why you'd hold him as well, for sure.
Yeah, so it's situational, right? But yeah, no, for you, you're stacked at wing fullback. So that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Bragging it up, the rich get richer is what I'm hearing. Big wig,
when you
New York investment banker.
Get out of here.
Just
Honestly,
comes into my humble Parramatta podcast.
I'm literally from Mount Druitt, baby. Shout out to 2770. All right, been waiting for those out there.
Yeah, fair enough. You started a different spot. All right. Actually, I don't mind the Druitt. My first job out of school was in the Druitt as well.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, mate, got the ties. All right, Tyron Wishart's an easier one, 660k. If you've had Tyron Wishart, you are the luckiest.
I honestly,
crap.
When someone said I was waiting for him to get to 700k, I was like, "What do you mean?" And then I saw his price, and I was like, "What the hell?" Like, he just kind of slipped under my radar. Like, I was going to get him at like 350, and then I didn't get him, so I ignored him for like 5 weeks, and now he's honestly just shit.
So I remember back then looking at him and going, "Nah, I've already got a few cheapy wing fullback halves. I've already got KO Weeks. I've already got Dan Atkinson. I've already got there was some other terrible one. I was like, I don't need Tyron Wishart. He's in for like 2 weeks for Jerome Hughes. Hughes will be back in 2 weeks. Don't worry about it." Nah, and he just keeps scoring tries. Look, with him, it's 50-50 that Munster plays this week. If Munster doesn't play and Wishart plays, he's playing against Parramatta. I say this with Para jerseys behind me, right? Like, they cannot tackle anyone. And Tyron Wishart's been scoring tries against good teams. So this could be really bad for non-owners. I'd stick with him one more week. You obviously can't captain him because, you might want to trade him. But keep that trade till late. So trade him for someone who plays after him and someone who is more expensive than him so that you can make that trade at last minute, or so you can make that trade in advance and reverse it instead. But other than that, I think we're on the same page. Tyron Wishart, he's going to score 4 tries this week, and he'll set a record in fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what's funny though? Just what you're saying that. I remember like we shot a few episodes of podcasts where you were like, "This is the year where like the backup half just stays longer than you expect, just plods away." And like, this is a prime example of that. So the year of the backup half, you're absolutely right. Anyway.
Well, that's why I'm looking at Atkinson again, right? Like,
yeah. Sure. You're right, actually. Now that you've said that, now that I've been reminded of that, I might go get Atkinson as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tamari Martin, though, he's cooled off. So, it doesn't always work.
Harris Tavita is now flying. So
yeah, mate, he's the guy, which is absurd. Yeah. What about the backup hooker? So Max Plath, 630k, scoring dreadfully. So his scoring formula is tackles minus about 50%, which isn't looking good. But do you see this bounce turning around? There's a bit of talk that what's his name, Harrison Graham, is going to be back pretty soon as well. So maybe Plath moves back to hooker. Even if he does move to hooker, is he good enough to be a keeper anyway? Like at 630k, I'm leaning more towards sell because I am so strong at half and middle forward anyway.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I assume you're moving back to lock, but I think what's weird for me is that I would have thought 80 minutes in the middle would have seen his tackle count really fly up.
Yeah.
But he's not doing anything else. So, even if you're making 55 tackles, if you miss 3, you're not doing anything. You're below 50. So at 630k, it'd be interesting. You're right. Like if they get another hooker in there, but it's tricky because I think he's still good enough for a high 40s average, but I don't think that's cutting it. I think if you think he'll go back to lock in the next couple of weeks, you hold him. But if you think he's going to be at hooker for the rest of the year with Marshall King gone, I think you sell him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, he's a 200k upgrade to Cleary. So where I've got him, it's different with our different teams, right? So I'm so stacked in those positions.
Yeah.
And KO Weeks is staying for me, but Max Plath is going. Whereas if your team's different, and you need him to be a backup middle and your backup half, then he has more utility and value to your team. So different for different coaches. I'm going to throw a few other guys in here that have been asked about as well. Give me your thoughts, quick fire. So Samuel Alfano.
Sell because I think he's like, he's kind of like that mid range. He's neither a cheapie. Look, I don't think there's any place for mid ranges at this time of year. Like, they're not doing anything for you. Like, you don't want to play them in your top 17, and you don't want them like 500k sitting in your non-player reserve as well. So you'd rather cash them out and upgrade elsewhere. That's my view. Yeah.
Fino also never cracks 50. So I'm just going to put that out too. Yeah. Scotty Sorensen.
Hold. I think he's good enough to be your 17th man. I think with Panthers playing well, him getting big minutes, working back from the injury, has upside. We've seen he can score 90 plus. I think he'll have, against his draw he'll have some big games. So I'd hold him dual position.
Agree.
He's better than Fino, yeah.
No, I agree with you. Attacking stats, 52.5 average, playing back row last year.
Mm-hmm.
Worth shouting out. I'll throw some others in. Harry Grant.
Keep. I think he's not doing well this year, but he could just get hot towards the back end of the year and do well. Easy draw as well, relatively. Keep.
Okay. Reece Robson.
Keep. Same reason. Like, there's not many amazing hookers out there. He's stable. He doesn't get hurt that often. He'll have some 40s. He'll get some 60s. Not worth using a trade on. Okay,
and then last one I'm going to throw in. Josh Curran played 70-odd minutes last week. Scored 57 with a try. Just a base try, no other stats to it. Does he appeal to you at all in the high 500s?
I mean, he's interesting, but not at this stage of the year. I just don't have enough trades to get it wrong. And I just think that he's sucked us in earlier this year a couple of times with these big scores. But then the next week he plays 50 minutes and gets low 40s. And it just kind of seesaws. He could get 70, 75 minutes every week from here with the injuries they have and do really well. But I just can't risk that because he's been kind of doing these games here and there and then falling off. But I'm not buying Curran.
Yep, I felt the same way. I think a guy like Dylan Brown's more reliable, for example, at that small price point. All right, last shout. Guess the score. Put that decimal point in. What do you think Nathan Cleary is going to score this week? We set our numbers. They were silly and high. So he's probably going to get... No, I'm not going to even finish that sentence. That is buy, hold, sell. Done and dusted. One of our longest.
Wow. I mean, this is the run home. This is exciting. No more major buy rounds. Let's go all in.
Mate, this next few weeks... This is big, and then we're gonna have 20-minute videos in round 25.
Yeah, when people aren't joining. No one's listening in round 25. So
there's still some hardcores.
Truly loyal.
People maybe they just like us.
Comment loyalty if you're going to be listening to us in round 25.
We might start giving away free stuff in the final rounds. Just whoever's here at that point, you get freebies. All right, crazy man. Well, good to have you on.
Yeah,
thanks.
See you soon.
All right, catch you on the next one. Good luck, everyone. See you on the next video.
Good luck.